2025 was a deadly year for Rohingya refugees fleeing camps in search of a better life.
The Rohingya are facing human rights violations, literally from all angles, from non-state actors, from state actors, from criminal syndicates.
We will look at why there's been a spike in deaths at sea. I'm Carolyn Beeler. Also, a Massachusetts college is attracting first-generation students with special programs and financial aid.
My family does not have money. It's not funny, but it's a little bit funny how little money we have.
And what makes a Muslim community in Cape Town unique. Plus, who doesn't love moose migrating on TV?
We can watch this for all day long, all night long in 3 weeks and just follow the nature.
Sounds dreamy. That's all ahead on The World. This is The World. I'm Carolyn Beeler. Thank you for tuning in. It's still holding, the ceasefire, that is, between Israel and Lebanon. It went into effect at midnight local time last night. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in a statement that he was asked by his friend President Trump to stop fighting, so he directed his army to do just that.
בשיחות השלום האלה יש לנו שתי דרישות יסודיות. אחד,
Netanyahu said today that Israel has created a buffer zone along the Lebanese border and destroyed 90% of Hezbollah's weapons. More big news. Iran today announced the opening of the Strait of Hormuz to commercial vessels. President Trump says the American blockade on Iranian ships and ports will remain in full force until a final deal is reached. We will watch how the situation progresses over the weekend. Now, though, we turn our attention to an issue that hasn't been getting as much attention lately. Migrants getting lost at sea or dying while making risky journeys toward what they hope will be safety. I'm referring to the nearly 900 Rohingya refugees reported missing or dead in the Andaman Sea and Bay of Bengal in 2025. That is according to numbers the UN Refugee Agency released today. The Rohingya are fleeing refugee camps in Bangladesh by boat after crossing into the country from Myanmar.
The Rohingyas are not choosing this journey. They are being forced into them by desperation.
Toon Kin is a Rohingya rights advocate in London. He says conditions in those refugee camps in Bangladesh are tough, and that is why people are getting on boats.
In Bangladesh, over 1 million Rohingya live in squalid conditions. They can't see any future. Many families see no hope for themselves or their children.
We begin today by checking in on that situation with Matthew Smith of Fortify Rights. That's a human rights group monitoring conditions for the Rohingya.
There have been Rohingya for decades in refugee camps in Bangladesh. And then the Rohingya faced genocidal attacks from the Myanmar military and its operatives in 2016 and 2017. And that forced upwards of 1,700,000 to 1 million Rohingya to flee the country. And since then, Rohingya have also been crossing the border seeking safe haven in Bangladesh. So the real root of this is with the Myanmar military junta, the Myanmar military in Myanmar and these attacks and their attempt to destroy the Rohingya as a people.
So the violence against the Rohingya, as you have said, has been going on for a long time. And these camps in Bangladesh have had difficult conditions also for a long time. There are frequent fires, crowded conditions. Has there been a change in conditions there that has pushed this number of people trying to flee by boat up in recent years?
There has. Some significant changes have taken place, Carolyn. Certainly the Trump administration really decapitating USAID did not help. And that, of course, prompted what was a reduction in funding across the board for humanitarian programs for Rohingya, from health to water and sanitation to education to protection for those that are facing in the camps for a number of reasons. And so food rations have gone down. So there is a high level of desperation among the Rohingya people on top of years of desperation. And there's a certain hopelessness. And so what we see is those conditions culminate with human trafficking syndicates preying on the Rohingya, deceiving them to get onto boats, telling them that they'll make money if they can take the trip to Malaysia. And then what they find is now they're essentially being held as property by these syndicates, and they're being bought and sold.
If they reach Malaysia, you mean?
That's right, yeah. And in a lot of these cases, we have seen boats that have been operated by human traffickers also perish at sea. The Andaman Sea right now is certainly one of the, if not the most dangerous route for refugees, migrants, and victims of trafficking at the moment.
So then for the folks who arrive in Malaysia that are transported by these traffickers, what kind of conditions do they face?
Well, typically over the years, trafficking syndicates will essentially tell people you need to raise $2,000, so to speak, or other large sum of money in order to buy their freedom back. And so if they can't do that, they face anything from what's effectively indentured servitude to other conditions of abuse. And then, of course, the situation in Malaysia is quite complicated as well. Refugees are being detained arbitrarily by the authorities there, and that's been going on for years.
There was a sobering example of the dangers of trying to flee by boat announced just this week. A boat with some 250 Rohingya and Bangladeshis capsized last week in the Andaman Sea. Can you tell me any more details about that?
Well, unfortunately, this is another case where year after year after year, we've seen these types of examples, and we've been repeatedly calling on governments to launch search and rescue operations. There are Navy ships operational in the Andaman Sea, whether it be Malaysia, Thailand, Bangladesh. And so there needs to be more coordination when this type of thing happens to urgently launch search and rescue. There needs to be safe disembarkation, meaning that, governments have a responsibility under international law to not only protect and save people in situations of distress at sea, but to allow for safe disembarkation. We've not seen the level of coordination that's needed to save Rohingya lives in that area. In this recent example, we do fear that not enough was done to save Rohingya lives.
Can you tell me more about the conditions on these boats and how they disembark from Bangladeshi shores that makes it so dangerous? Are they overcrowded? Are they loaded with more people than the boats can handle?
The boats are typically overcrowded. It's a very difficult situation for Rohingya that are on these boats. They're often given very little food, very little water. They're often subjected to abuse on the boats. So boat operators will beat Rohingya who they perceive to be stepping out of line. And, we know this because we've documented over the years. We've spoken with not only people who have escaped from these situations, but in some cases, in rare cases, you can find Rohingya who might have a phone with. And so that was several years ago. We had a case along those lines. Essentially, they're facing very difficult conditions at sea. And those seas are rough, and the boats are not equipped to be doing what they're doing. They're essentially repurposed fishing boats in some cases.
So how long is this journey?
Well, it can take weeks in some cases. There have been cases of these boats being at sea for several weeks, attempting to travel from the shores of Bangladesh to Malaysia or Thailand. And there are a lot of factors that can influence the amount of time that journey takes. For example, with the vessel, the conditions at sea. But in any amount of time, it's unsafe. And it's unsafe for reasons of the natural environment, but it's also unsafe because many of these boats are operated by essentially trafficking syndicates.
There is a civil war going on in Myanmar. Have conditions there made it better for the Rohingya who remain, made it worse?
The situation in Myanmar, unfortunately, continues to deteriorate. We did see today an amnesty for several thousand political prisoners were released. Not all political prisoners were released. This is Senior General Min Aung Hlaing's attempt to try to persuade the world that he's some kind of reformer.
Min Aung Hlaing is the junta leader in Myanmar.
That's correct. He just held sham elections not too long ago where, surprise, surprise, he was elected president. And this is a man who is responsible for genocide. He's responsible for war crimes. He's responsible for atrocity crimes against the civilian population across the country, not just the Rohingya.
Are there any movements in the positive direction?
Many Rohingya have been working for justice and accountability for the genocide that they've survived in Myanmar, that they faced in Myanmar. And right now, there is a case ongoing at the International Court of Justice. I was there for the final hearings earlier this year. The Gambia brought a case against the state of Myanmar for violating the Genocide Convention and perpetrating genocide against the Rohingya. Right now, we're waiting. The Rohingya people are waiting for a final verdict, and we do expect a verdict in that case later this year. We are hopeful that justice will be served, but of course, it's not a silver bullet.
That was Matthew Smith, CEO and founder of Fortify Rights, a human rights group monitoring conditions for the Rohingya. We reached him in Bangkok. That case he mentioned at the International Court of Justice, Rohingya rights advocate Toon Kin was also there in The Hague for the final hearing in January. He told me what he hopes the outcome of that case will be.
Many things are going on in this world. These days, attention is not on Rohingya, unfortunately. When International Court of Justice deliver the verdict, fingers crossed, we hope that positive outcome will come out for the Rohingya people. And then UN Security Council must take action. International community must take a stronger action to return Rohingya refugees to their homeland with protection, and reparations and compensation need to be done. Then they can live peacefully in their houses with their rights.
Toon Kin is president of the Burmese Rohingya Organization UK in London. There have been 2 school shootings this week in southern Turkey, one on Tuesday, another on Wednesday. In that most recent incident, a 14-year-old student opened fire on 2 classrooms at a middle school. He killed 9 people and wounded 13 others. These types of shootings are rare in Turkey. Reporter Fariba Nawa is based in Istanbul. I caught up with her this week to hear how people there are responding. Fariba, these types of events are something that we have unfortunately grown accustomed to here in the U.S., but I understand not in Turkey. What has the reaction there been to these back-to-back shootings?
Yeah, this is a rare incident, or rare incidents, I should say. This has shocked the country, especially parents. I was at the local park where I live, and I was just talking to parents there, and they are not sending their kids to school this week. There was a consensus that it's safer to stay home than to go to school because they want to know why this happened and what caused this. So there were a lot of questions, but a lot of concern as well. And then who to blame, right? These are Turkish kids. And there was a lot of discussions about bad parenting, and they were given too much access to social media. So it seems that the culprit seems to be, at least in the consciousness of the Turkish parent, it's social media.
And what about any sort of official indication of what the motives might have been for these 2 shooters? Is there anything known about that?
No, this is not. The only thing that is sort of understood is that in some of these areas, people own a lot of guns. There are sort of tribal feuds still that go on. And so gun ownership is not a rare thing. But the second incident that happened where 9 people were killed, the father was a retired police officer, and he had a license to have these guns, but the police also arrested him. He gave a testimony, and he said that my son was very interested in guns, and I was trying to understand why, and I was trying to teach him how to use them responsibly. So he took him to a shooting range recently to teach him how to use guns, but told him that, he's too young to be owning one. Despite that, the police did arrest him.
I understand there's some early indication that there might have been a link to the U.S. here?
Yes. On one of the boys' phones, the one who killed 9 people and then himself, the police found a picture of Elliot Rodger, who was responsible for a mass shooting at UC Santa Barbara in 2014. And there is a lot of discussion about American culture being exported here, gun culture and violence. And something like this happening in schools is horrifying. It's not normalized. And that's what Turks are afraid of, is that we don't want this to be normalized like it is in the United States.
You mentioned that some parents are keeping their kids at home this week. Are parents doing anything else in the wake of these 2 shootings?
Yeah, parents and teachers, they went on a march in the city of Kahramanmaraş where this happened, demanding that the Minister of Education be fired because he doesn't do enough to stop the violence.
Reporter Fariba Nawa in Istanbul, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're listening to The World. This is The World. I'm Carolyn Beeler. Much of the country is experiencing a demographic shift, a sharp drop in the number of college-aged adults. One demographic, though, is still growing: Latino students, many of them first-generation Americans. And colleges across the nation are wrestling with a question: are they truly ready to recruit, retain, and graduate those students? Kirk Carapezza of GBH in Boston has that story.
I'm standing outside the main administrative building on the old Pine Manor College campus in Brookline, Massachusetts. It's a 19th century shingle-style mansion with turrets. Shuttles are running from here to Boston College a few miles away. That's because in 2020, Boston College acquired Pine Manor, and then 4 years later, it launched a new school, Messina College, a residential 2-year junior college. Its stated mission: serve low-income first-generation students.
Pine Manor College was facing enrollment declines, and the pandemic hit at that moment. And so I think BC saw an alignment of missions.
Father Eric Berriesa is a Jesuit priest and founding dean of Messina College. He's also the son of Mexican immigrants and a first-generation student himself. So he believes in the mission of Messina with its small classes, mentors, and generous financial aid.
When I was a college student over 20 years ago now, we didn't have models like this. It was a sink or swim model. You just sort of had to figure it out or you didn't. And we want to take some of that guessing out of the equation.
Colleges can no longer factor race into admissions ever since the Supreme Court banned the practice. But Berriesa says about 40% of Messina students come from Latino backgrounds, double the national average. That's because of how and where the school recruits.
We're looking for students who are first gen with high financial need.
Messina enrolls more than 200 students, mostly from Massachusetts and Rhode Island, offering them an associate's degree and a pathway to a bachelor's, potentially at Boston College. Nationwide, only about half of Latino students complete a bachelor's degree within 6 years, compared with roughly 70% of white students.
That's been really consistent for many years. That has not budged.
Amanda Fernandez is the CEO of the nonprofit Latinos for Education. With demographics shifting, she says closing that educational gap is essential to economic growth.
Latinos are the workforce of the future. If Latinos are not also contributing to the economy, then it affects every person in the country.
Fernandez says more schools need to step up and provide academic, financial, and social support to help more students finish and enter the workforce.
Today, we're actually going to test your own electrical system.
Inside a small lab at Messina College, students are checking their heart rate.
The heart muscle actually doesn't need the brain to start sending those signals. If we remember from the lecture.
Is it on? Turn it on. Okay. There we go.
First-year student Kaylee Castillo from Lawrence, Massachusetts, is the daughter of Dominican immigrants. She hopes to become a nurse and says she chose Messina in part because of the financial aid.
Biggest factor, honestly, because my family does not have money. It's actually a little bit funny. It's not funny, but it's a little bit funny how little money we have.
Castillo often takes the shuttle to the main Boston College campus where she's on the dance team, but she says she feels most at home here at Messina.
Maybe just that over here it's a little calmer. There's less people. If you're in the dining hall, it's not, you're not scrambling to find a seat. You can laugh a little louder here.
Messina's first class graduates in May, and the college says 40 students have already been offered spots at BC to continue toward a bachelor's degree right in their backyard. For The World, I'm Kirk Carapezza, Boston.
This is The World. I'm Carolyn Beeler. Here in the U.S., we have Shark Week on TV. A week of dramatic shark content on the Discovery Channel.
Wow, did you see that?
Now, for a study in contrasts, this is what the wildlife coverage on Swedish television sounds like. This is a herd of moose tromping through the woods before stopping to play in a crystal clear stream. It's from the Great Moose Migration from Swedish public television, and the footage goes on like this for 3 weeks every year. Nonstop, live-streamed moose in the wild. Sweden's moose migration should get underway any day now. This year's broadcast is expected to launch next week. While we wait with bated breath, let's listen back to a conversation from this time last year. Marco Werman interviewed Johan Erhag, who works at the Great Moose Migration, about what is known as slow TV.
We have about 30 cameras, 25 of them are remote. So we actually sit in Umeå, which is 3.5 hours from the actual place where the mooses migrate and where we have our cameras. So we can watch this for all day long, all night long in 3 weeks and just follow the nature.
So you've got a director's kind of suite and you've got all those monitors looking at all of those cameras and all of those moose 24/7?
24/7.
Wow. What is the significance of the moose migration itself for your viewers in Sweden? Is it something people have a cultural attachment to?
Yeah, I think the Swedish people are very proud of the Swedish moose. It's our biggest animal. It's very, very calm. And actually, when you see these big, giant mooses swim, it's gorgeous when the head are popping up in the water with their flapping ears. And you see several of them coming in like a traffic jam. It's a nice thing.
Johan, explain the concept of slow TV, because I can see it being meditative, but as you know, the fast kind of TV, reality TV, is what the vast majority of the world is tuning into.
Yeah, but I guess this is quite the opposite of everything we do today in form of TV shows and social media. The thing with this migrating mooses is mindfulness, calmness, back to the nature feeling. But then there is something that you really don't want to miss. You know it's going to happen, something new every day, and people don't want to miss it. They don't want to go back and hear everyone else, their experience of the show. You want to see it together like a community.
I've been reading quotes from some people who are just obsessed with this program. It's slow TV, but apparently there are some fans who are so into the show they get push alerts on their phone so they know when a moose has arrived at a certain point on the path. Is a fanaticism offering kind of this incongruous counterpoint to the mindfulness quality of the program?
Yeah, the concept is the moose migrating, and if you want just that, you can have that, but then we have put different layers of the show. So if you want push notice when the moose are about to swim or even will be there or a bear is coming, we will push it, but you don't have to do it. You can watch it and just feel and see the nature just how it is.
I mean, you said you have viewers all over the world now, but it is happening in Norway and Sweden. What does that tell us?
Yeah, what does it tell us? I don't know. Maybe we're slow people here likes this phenomenon. I don't know. But obviously, it's more people enjoying it.
I mean, you're behind the show, so I'm wondering how deeply you've gotten into it yourself. I mean, do you ever find yourself just kind of transfixed in the director's suite, like watching all the monitors?
Yeah, actually, we try to watch everything, but sometimes we miss the moose, and then that's why we have the audience. Because we also have a layer which is specific cameras that the audience can watch too. So they actually help us to see when things happen. So sometimes we really need to find everything.
You need the prompt from the community.
Yeah, exactly.
So this show has been going on for 6 years. The viewership seems to keep rising. Any surprises in the plot, shall we say, this year?
Well, we have the moose because that's the idea from the start, but then we follow the bears as well. And last year we had the lynx walking in, which is very, very rare. And yeah, anything can happen really. So we'll see. We will follow the nature and we can't decide what's going to happen.
Johan Erhag spoke to Marco Werman about the Great Moose Migration on Swedish TV. This year's migration will be starting very soon. You're listening to The World. This is The World. I'm Carolyn Beeler. Today, Iran announced that it has reopened the Strait of Hormuz to commercial ships. The U.S., though, says its blockade of Iranian ships and ships that have paid Iran's toll remains in full force. Still, the Iranian announcement sparked a drop in the cost of oil by more than 10%. This war has had a dramatic impact on oil prices around the world, as we have been covering, and we will continue watching that in coming weeks. Finally, today we board a night train in India. It is a new Indian-made Vande Bharat semi-high-speed train. The trains were inaugurated earlier this year by the country's prime minister and are supposed to herald a new era of clean, modern, and faster trains. But perhaps also the beginning of the end of the adventure associated with slow, long-distance travel on India's historic tracks. Jamie Fullerton reports from West Bengal.
I'm on platform 6 at Howrah Junction Station, Kolkata. Smiling passengers are jostling for selfies with the first Vande Bharat sleeper train. The train has a sleek orange, black and grey nose that tonight becomes the backdrop of hundreds of photos. When this train launched in January, some passengers' videos praising it went viral. There was a big online scramble for tickets right from the launch.
This doesn't feel like a typical train. If this is the future of train travel in India, I'm really impressed.
I step up into my carriage, into a mist of quiet but excitable chatter. I pull my suitcase through the narrow corridor and shove it under a sleep berth. Normally on a night train, I'd check under the bunk for spilled drinks and other detritus, but here I don't bother. I can already see that the light grey furnishings of my second-class carriage are immaculately clean. What did they say? What was the announcement? Door is closed. Door is closing, okay. At 6:20 p.m, the sleeper train leaves the station, travelling north towards Guwahati city. It's now a 14-hour journey, down from up to 18 hours on some older trains.
Basically, this is a hi-fi train, no? People wanted to travel by this train in a shorter distance. Shorter distance, a short time. Time will be less.
My bunk neighbour tells me his name is Subra Bedi and that he's a recently retired Indian Railways inspector. The new Vande Bharat trains have a top speed of 100 miles per hour. And although some of them rarely or never reach this speed, many of the trains have significantly cut travel times on routes across India. The cheapest sleeper train tickets cost the equivalent of $25. That's expensive by local standards. The Vande Bharats are billed as premium services and alternatives to taking flights.
This is pillow cover, this is towel, this is the cover of blanket.
Oh, it's got the Indian Railways logo on it.
Yeah.
Nice. Vande Bharat means salute to India in the ancient Sanskrit language, and India's government has called the trains a new phase for its rail services. They represent a break from the crowded and grimy image that some people have of older Indian trains. It seems kind of cleaner as well, right?
Yeah, very, very clean. The toilets and the washrooms are very clean.
It's the first time I've ever seen someone vacuum cleaning on a train before. I've never seen that in India before.
In this train?
First time.
First time.
Indian Railways has, of course, launched various new trains and upgrades over the years. But in 2019, the launch of the first Vande Bharat Express day trains sparked particularly huge public interest. Now, there are more than 150 Vande Bharat trains in operation.
Doors open on left side.
Vande Bharat trains are Indian-made, but have been compared to new European trains. Sleek, modern, semi-high speed. A break from the romantic and nostalgic image some train purists have of the Indian railway network. An image of open windows and doors, the wind in your hair, and sipping chai on slow, trundling 18-hour journeys. The Vande Bharat sleeper train has chai too, and pretty good food. I get little pots of chicken curry, rice, potato, flatbread, and a milk sweet, all balanced on a plastic tray on my knees. It's honestly good?
It's veg.
Yeah.
Vegetarian.
What is that? Is that paneer or like...
This one?
Yeah. After my meal, I climb up onto my bunk and find it's pretty comfortable. I've got various plug and wire sockets by my head, plus a clean pillow and sheets. The ride is far smoother than many clunky journeys I've had on older Indian trains. I sleep fairly well, uninterrupted by any jolts or abrasive screes.
Trains have been intrinsic to our lives. I mean, there is hardly anybody who's in this country whose lives have not been touched by trains in any way. So they are part of the fabric of our society.
Before my train ride, I spoke to Shashanka Nanda on a call. Nanda is a long-time member of the Indian Railways Fan Club Association and closely follows new train launches.
For a large part of our population, they still remain the primary mode of transport.
Nanda says that he and his fellow train nerds have generally been thrilled about the arrival of the new Vande Bharat services. Nanda says that service and cleanliness standards had slipped on some of the older train services he used. He said that Vande Bharat trains, such as the new night train, had raised the bar back up.
And I know of many people within my own circle who swore by not by traveling by train, but they did end up on a Vande Bharat and they said, oh, this is fantastic and this is like anything we've seen in Europe and we'll definitely want to travel on this again. So that's happening.
The Vande Bharat sleeper train launch hasn't been perfect. A video showing litter strewn in one of its carriages went viral in January. Perhaps that influenced the rigorous staff cleaning schedules I see in action on my journey, a few months after that video caused online debate about passenger behaviour.
That's the chai.
Tea. Tea. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I wake at 6 a.m. and sit down next to a window as we approach Guwahati. Paddy fields and farms pass by in a green blur. India's government wants 800 Vande Bharat train sets operating by 2030, including day trains and sleepers. The goal is to have 4,500 Vande Bharat train sets operating by 2047.
Thank you for traveling with Indian Railways.
Tourists like me can argue that the new Vande Bharat sleeper train doesn't bring the pure adventure or romance on the rails that other Indian trains do. But this new era of slick, modern, practical and diligently vacuum-clean train travel is clearly connecting with the public. The night train makes 12 journeys a week between Kolkata and Guwahati and always sells out. For The World, I'm Jamie Fullerton in Guwahati.
The World is produced by GBH and PRX, broadcasting weekdays from the Nan and Bill Harris studio in Boston. Find us online anytime at theworld.org and on YouTube. We are at The World News GBH. I'm Carolyn Beeler. Have yourself a great weekend.
The World is supported by the Carnegie Corporation of New York, working to reduce political polarization through philanthropic support for education, democracy, and peace. More information at carnegie.org. By the Lumina Foundation, committed to a fair, universal system for learning beyond high school that offers every American the chance for a better life. LuminaFoundation.org. By the PRX Ambassador Council, whose members include Renee Vacchio-Albi, Roman Mars, the Kelson Foundation, and the Ken and Lucy Lehman family. The World's theme music is composed by Ned Porter. The World is a co-production of GBH Boston and PRX.
PRX.